We all know how crucial it is to be surrounded by people who lift us up, support us, and inspire us to become our best selves. But what happens when that support isn't there? What happens when the energy around us feels draining, toxic, or manipulative? How do we recognize when we're in a relationship with someone who is more interested in control and harm than in growth and connection? Today, let's talk about the signs to watch for, signs that can help you protect yourself and your energy from negative influences. One of the most insidious and damaging signs of a toxic relationship is when someone consistently undermines your self-worth. This often doesn't happen in one overt action, but rather in a series of small, seemingly insignificant comments or behaviors that accumulate over time. It might start as a casual remark about your appearance, your career, or your dreams, a comment that makes you question whether you're truly capable or worthy. Are you sure that's the best you can do? Or maybe that's a bit too ambitious for someone like you. These remarks are not just criticisms, they are calculated to plant seeds of doubt and insecurity in your mind. The person may disguise these undermining statements as constructive criticism, but deep down you can feel that something is off. They position themselves as someone who knows better, constantly making you feel as though your judgment, your choices, and your desires are flawed or unimportant. Over time, you begin to second guess yourself, to doubt your decisions, and to lose confidence in your abilities. They might downplay your successes, dismissing your hard work as lucky or not that impressive. When you share a personal achievement, they might say, anyone could have done that, or you shouldn't get too excited, it's not that big of a deal. This subtle erosion of your self-esteem can be incredibly harmful and can leave you feeling like you're never enough no matter what you do. What makes this behavior particularly toxic is its insidiousness. Unlike blatant insults or attacks, these remarks are often veiled in what seems like concern or humor. This makes it difficult to pinpoint the true harm until it's too late. You might even start to question whether you're being overly sensitive or whether you're misinterpreting the situation. But deep down you feel it, a steady drain of your confidence, a growing sense of inadequacy, and a belief that you're incapable of achieving what you desire or becoming who you want to be. In these relationships, your worth is continually defined by someone else's standards. They set the bar, and no matter how high you jump, it's never enough. This pattern slowly chips away at your sense of identity and leaves you feeling lost, disconnected, and unworthy of anything more than their approval. But here's the truth. No one should have the power to define your value but you. Your worth is intrinsic. It's not contingent on someone's approval, nor should it be dictated by the shifting opinions of others. You are worthy simply because you exist. When you find yourself in a situation where your self-worth is constantly undermined, it's vital to pause and assess the relationship. Ask yourself, are your achievements celebrated or diminished? Do you feel seen and appreciated, or are you made to feel less than, regardless of your efforts? Healthy relationships should build you up, not tear you down. You deserve to be surrounded by people who see your value, who encourage you to reach higher, and who celebrate your victories without minimizing them. Gaslighting is one of the most emotionally devastating forms of manipulation, and it often goes unnoticed because it's a gradual process. At its core, gaslighting is about eroding your sense of reality, making you doubt your own perceptions, memories, and judgments. It's a strategy used to control you, to distort your sense of what is true, and to leave you feeling uncertain and confused about your own thoughts and feelings. The term itself comes from a play and later a film called Gaslight, in which a husband manipulates his wife into thinking she's losing her sanity by dimming the lights in their home and denying it when she notices making her question her own mind. In a relationship, gaslighting typically begins with small, seemingly innocent statements that are designed to plant seeds of doubt. For example, you might clearly remember something that happened in the past, but the person you're involved with insists that you're mistaken. No, that didn't happen, they might say, or I never said that. Over time, these denials begin to chip away at your confidence in your own memory, causing you to second guess yourself and question your reality. The more they deny your truth, the more vulnerable you become and the more you rely on their version of events. What makes gaslighting so dangerous is that it doesn't rely on overt lies or accusations. Instead, it's built on subtle, often inconspicuous manipulations that leave you feeling isolated and unsupported. The person may use tactics like contradicting your reality. They might tell you that something never happened, even when you know it did. For instance, if you remember a conversation where they said something hurtful, they'll vehemently deny saying it. Over time, you start to question your own memories and wonder if you're making things up in your mind, dismissing your feelings. When you express how their actions or words have hurt you, a gaslighter may downplay your feelings, calling you overly emotional or too sensitive. They might say things like, "You're just being dramatic," or "You always blow things out of proportion," leaving you to question whether you really have a reason to feel upset. Shifting the blame, gaslighters are skilled at deflecting blame. When confronted with their harmful behavior, they'll turn the situation around to make you feel like you're the one at fault. They might say, "If you didn't act this way, I wouldn't have to react like I do," or "This wouldn't be happening if you hadn't done that." In essence, they turn the tables and you end up taking responsibility for things that aren't your fault, making you doubt your own sanity. In the most extreme cases, gaslighters can make you feel like you're losing your mind. They'll manipulate you to the point where you start questioning your own grasp on reality. When you begin to doubt your perceptions, you are left feeling powerless, unsure of who you can trust. They may even plant the idea that you have a mental health issue when in fact it's their manipulative behavior that's causing the confusion. The impact of gaslighting is profound. It creates an environment where you no longer feel safe trusting your own instincts or emotions. You begin to rely on the gaslighter's version of events, feeling more and more dependent on their view of reality. This leads to a severe loss of self-confidence and self-worth. Over time, you may find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, doubting your own perspective, and feeling like you're constantly on the defensive. What makes gaslighting particularly toxic is that it's often difficult for others to see because it's so subtle and insidious. On the outside, it can appear like a normal disagreement or misunderstanding. The gaslighter may even appear as the victim of your emotions, causing others to question your side of the story. This isolation intensifies the gaslighted person's confusion and distress, leaving them without the support and validation they need to fight back. Gaslighting isn't just about winning an argument or getting the last word. It's a form of psychological control. It's about destabilizing you and making you believe that your experience isn't valid, that you can't trust yourself, and that only the gaslighter holds the truth. It's one of the most manipulative forms of abuse because it erodes your foundation of self-trust and makes you feel as though you're constantly walking on eggshells. If you recognize gaslighting in your relationship, it's crucial to take steps to regain control of your own reality. Start by documenting events or conversations that make you feel confused or unsettled. Trust your own perceptions and don't let someone else define your experience. Reach out to supportive friends, family, or even a therapist who can offer an outside perspective. The most important thing to remember is that your feelings, your memories, and your experiences are valid, and you deserve to have your truth respected. Emotional blackmail is a form of manipulation that relies on using your fears, vulnerabilities, and emotional triggers to control your behavior. It's a tactic that is subtle yet incredibly powerful, often making you feel trapped in the relationship as if your emotional well-being is in the hands of the person using it. It creates a cycle where the manipulator demands certain actions or behaviors from you by exploiting your deepest fears, often the fear of losing love, approval, or connection. Emotional blackmail is like being held hostage emotionally, where your choices are not truly your own, but are instead shaped by the fear of what might happen if you don't comply. In these relationships, the manipulator understands what matters most to you, whether that's your desire to be loved, accepted, or respected, and uses it against you. They know your emotional triggers, your weaknesses, and your vulnerabilities, and they will strategically exploit them to ensure you give them what they want. It's a dangerous game that plays on your fear of rejection, abandonment, or guilt, leaving you feeling powerless to break free from the cycle. One of the most common tactics of emotional blackmail is guilt tripping. The manipulator will make you feel responsible for their emotional state, leading you to believe that if you don't act in a certain way, you are directly causing them pain or distress. For example, they might say things like, "If you loved me, you would do this for me," or "I can't believe you're doing this to me when you know how much I'm suffering." These statements are meant to make you feel guilty for setting boundaries or for prioritizing your own needs. Over time, this constant guilt can erode your sense of self, making you feel as though your happiness is secondary to theirs. Another form of emotional blackmail is threatening to withdraw affection or love. The manipulator might make statements like, "If you don't do what I want, I won't love you anymore," or "I'll leave you if you don't change." These threats play on your fear of abandonment, making you feel like the only way to keep the relationship intact is by giving in to the other person's demands. In this way, the manipulator uses your emotional dependency as leverage, keeping you in a constant state of anxiety about losing their love or approval. The use of emotional threats is also common in emotional blackmail. This may manifest in direct or indirect threats to hurt themselves, whether through self-harm or other drastic actions. The manipulator may say, "If you leave me, I don't know what I'll do," or "I don't think I can go on if you're not in my life." These threats place an immense emotional burden on you, making you feel responsible for their well-being and creating a sense of fear that your decision to assert your own needs could cause irrevocable harm to them. This is an incredibly toxic way of controlling someone, as it forces them to carry the emotional weight of the other person's mental and emotional state. Sometimes emotional blackmail also involves silent treatment or emotional withdrawal. The person may refuse to speak to you, give you the cold shoulder, or intentionally ignore your needs in order to make you feel isolated and desperate for their attention. This method of control is designed to make you feel anxious and unsettled, constantly wondering what you've done wrong or what you need to do to earn back their approval. It's a slow-burning form of manipulation, as it creates an atmosphere where the other person holds the power. You're left constantly trying to figure out how to get them to open up or return to you emotionally. The crux of emotional blackmail is that it forces you into a situation where you feel like you have no choice but to comply with the manipulator's wishes. The relationship becomes one of coercion rather than mutual respect and support. Every decision you make, every boundary you try to set is met with resistance, often in the form of emotional outbursts, guilt, or threats. You may begin to feel as though you're walking on eggshells, afraid that any small action could trigger a confrontation or withdrawal. This constant manipulation leads to a gradual erosion of your sense of self-worth and autonomy. The person using emotional blackmail makes you feel as though your needs don't matter and that the only way to keep peace in the relationship is by constantly sacrificing your own desires and values for their benefit. Over time, this dynamic can leave you feeling drained, confused, and disconnected from your own identity. It's important to recognize emotional blackmail for what it is and take steps to protect yourself from it. One of the first steps is to set clear, firm boundaries. You need to communicate openly about what behaviors are unacceptable and what actions you will not tolerate. If someone is using guilt, threats, or withdrawal to control you, it's essential to assert your right to make choices that prioritize your emotional health, even if it means confronting uncomfortable emotions or having difficult conversations. Self-care is also crucial in these situations. Surround yourself with people who genuinely care for you and who respect your boundaries. Acknowledge that your worth is not dependent on someone else's approval or love. You deserve to be in relationships where love and respect are freely given, not manipulated or coerced. It's essential to lean on those who affirm your value and remind you that you are worthy of kindness and consideration. One of the most destructive behaviors in a toxic or manipulative relationship is the deliberate creation of division between you and those around you, whether that's family, friends, coworkers, or anyone you care about. The person who seeks to create division is often doing so for selfish reasons, usually to gain control over you, isolate you, or weaken your support system. They understand that human connections are powerful, and by undermining your relationships with others, they make you more dependent on them. This tactic is incredibly effective because it plays on your emotional need for connection, trust, and belonging, and twists it to serve their own agenda. A key strategy in creating division is playing on insecurities. The manipulator will often target the relationships that matter most to you and exploit any weaknesses or vulnerabilities in those connections. For example, they might say things like, "I don't understand why your friend is always so critical of you." Or, "It seems like your family doesn't really support your dreams, don't you think?" These comments are designed to plant seeds of doubt, making you question the intentions of the people around you. They might suggest that your loved ones don't care about you or that their opinions aren't as valuable as the manipulators. By doing so, they subtly encourage you to distance yourself from those who could offer you support, guidance, and a healthy perspective. The manipulator might also use gossip and rumors to create distrust. They may twist facts, exaggerate situations, or flat out lie about people in your life to fuel misunderstandings or conflict. This could range from telling you that someone said something negative about you when they didn't, to fabricating entire stories about how others have wronged you. Once the seed of doubt has been planted, you may start to see others in a more negative light, or you might even begin to act defensively or withdraw from them. The person who is creating division will, of course, be quick to present themselves as the only one who truly understands you, further isolating you from those you love. Another tactic used to create division is deliberately fostering jealousy or rivalry. They might encourage competition between you and others, highlighting perceived differences or exaggerating shortcomings. For example, if you're in a relationship, they may say, "Your ex always treated you better than this, don't you remember?" Or, "It seems like your friend is always getting ahead while you're stuck in the same place." These statements are designed to make you feel as though your relationships are less stable or less supportive than they really are. They want you to believe that everyone else is a threat which causes you to become suspicious, jealous, or resentful, ultimately weakening your connections. The manipulator may also pit you against others directly. If you're in a workplace setting, they might say things like, "I can't believe how your colleague is taking credit for your work." Or it's clear that they're undermining you in meetings. In a personal context, they may exaggerate a loved one's flaws or actions, saying, "I don't think your friend is really happy for you," or "Your family never listens to your needs." These kinds of statements are not only divisive, they're incredibly damaging because they create unnecessary tension between you and people who should be your allies. Rather than feeling supported and uplifted, you begin to feel suspicious and resentful toward the very people who could be your greatest sources of support. Isolating you from your support system is another effective tactic for creating division. The manipulator may subtly encourage you to spend less time with others by saying things like, "Don't you want to spend more time with me instead of being with them all the time?" Or, "You've been hanging out with your friends so much lately. Don't you think it's time to focus on us?" While wanting quality time with someone is natural, when this is used as a tool for isolation, it becomes manipulative. The goal here is to make you feel that your relationships with others are taking away from your connection with them, creating a false sense of importance in the manipulator's presence. Over time, you may start to feel guilty for spending time with others, or even start believing that the manipulator is the only one who truly cares about you, further deepening the divide between you and the people in your life. Another subtle yet harmful tactic is the projection of blame. The manipulator will often make it seem as though everyone else is to blame for any issues that arise. For instance, if you have a disagreement with a friend or family member, the manipulator will frame it as if the other person is in the wrong, casting them in a negative light. "I can't believe how selfish your friend is being after everything you've done for them," or "Your family never appreciates you like I do." By doing this, the manipulator distances you from people who should be allies in your life and slowly erodes your trust in them. This can lead to you feeling isolated and disconnected from those who would otherwise offer you a healthy perspective and emotional support. It's also common for the person creating division to undermine your perception of others. They might suggest that you're being naive, overly trusting, or even foolish for relying on people in your life. They may say things like, "You always let people walk all over you," or "You need to stop trusting people who don't deserve it." This type of undermining is particularly dangerous because it makes you feel as though your judgments and decisions are flawed, leaving you more susceptible to following the manipulator's advice instead of trusting your own instincts. The more they can make you doubt the people around you, the more control they can gain over your actions and thoughts. The ultimate goal of creating division is to break down your support system and make you more dependent on the manipulator. They want to be the sole person you rely on, to position themselves as your primary source of validation, emotional support, and affection. In doing so, they create a toxic environment where your relationships with others are sabotaged, leaving you vulnerable to their influence and control. This type of isolation isn't always obvious at first. It's often subtle, hidden beneath layers of seemingly caring or concerned behavior. But the end result is always the same. You find yourself increasingly alone, cut off from people who genuinely care about you, and trapped in a relationship with someone who has manipulated you into believing they are your only true ally. Recognizing these behaviors is key to breaking free from them. To protect yourself, it's important to maintain strong, healthy relationships outside of the manipulative influence. Trust the people who have consistently shown support, and keep a clear understanding of what healthy relationships should feel like. Your bonds with others are your lifeline, and no one has the right to control or undermine those connections for their own selfish gain. One of the most subtle yet overwhelming tactics used by toxic or manipulative individuals is the draining of your emotional, mental, and physical energy. This kind of behavior doesn't always manifest in obvious or direct ways, but operates like a slow burn, gradually wearing you down until you're left feeling exhausted, depleted, and disconnected from your sense of self. Unlike someone who may openly demand your attention or resources, the person who drains your energy does so by subtly controlling your emotional landscape, pushing you into a state of constant stress, anxiety, or confusion. The key feature of this draining behavior is its gradual accumulation, which can make it incredibly difficult to pinpoint or recognize at first. Initially, it may feel like the manipulator is simply asking for a lot of attention, time, or effort, but over time, you'll realize that it's taking a toll on your well-being. This energy drain often happens in a variety of forms, such as emotional overload, mental exhaustion, or even physical depletion from constantly managing the dynamic. One of the most prominent ways someone drains your energy is by creating an environment of constant emotional turbulence. These individuals have a way of drawing you into their emotional chaos, making you feel like you're always walking on eggshells or that you're never able to find peace. They may regularly create crises, stirring up drama or exaggerating minor issues, and demand that you drop everything to focus on their needs. You might find yourself consistently in a state of emotional hypervigilance, where you're constantly anticipating the next emotional outburst or crisis. This relentless emotional instability pulls you into their world of turmoil, leaving you with little space to focus on your own needs, aspirations, or desires. In such relationships, you often feel like you are the one carrying the emotional weight for both people. The manipulator may show little to no interest in your emotional state, yet they consistently demand that you support, comfort, or reassure them. They may say things like, "I need you right now," or "I can't handle this without you." Over time, you may become so consumed with tending to their emotional needs that you forget to take care of your own. Their emotional demands start to feel like an endless job where you are expected to be constantly available, always putting their needs before yours. This can leave you feeling drained and overwhelmed, as if you are running on empty while trying to meet their unceasing demands. Another way energy is drained is through constant negativity. Negative, pessimistic, or critical behavior can be emotionally exhausting over time.